Hey, remember how the Mariners are coming off their worst series of the year? Well, now they have to bounce back against the best team in baseball. Yay, I guess. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Friday, June 30th, 2023. This is Heading Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. You can now get a free 7-day trial to check out the show. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description of this episode. Later on in the show, we're going to look at Phillies infielder Alec Bohm as a potential trade target for the Mariners. But before we get into that, Colby, the Mariners are back in action tonight, which yay. Yeah. So on top of, that depressing news in general, they're also playing the best team in baseball, the Tampa Bay Rays, who, of course, haven't been playing as well as they were to start the year. Like I said a couple of nights ago, pretty hard to maintain that over the course of a full season. They are still, in fact, the best team in baseball by record. And guess who's on the bump tonight for Tampa? Shane McClanahan. Wow, what a privilege for us to get to watch Shane McClanahan pitch tonight. Yay. You can really sense my optimism. It is just pouring out of the screen, I'm sure. I'm not super hopeful, Colby.
It's just going to be really funny when they win 9-2.
Right, that's the most Mariners thing that could happen.
Well, I mean, here's the deal, right? This game's not going to go okay, right? They're either going to score one run and strike out 15 times, or they're going to score 8 and win 8-2. There's no they lost 5-4, but they showed some life, blah blah. That's not going to happen. So we're kind of sitting here this is either going to go really well or really poorly, and that's just the worst. But especially since the odds are, if it's either going to be really well or really poorly, the odds lean heavily to it's going to go really poorly. So we'll see. Baseball is weird, but yeah, the Mariners are pretty predictable right now.
I wish I had better tidings for our listeners today, but I just I look at this matchup on paper, and considering the terrible effort we saw on Wednesday and just the overall awful vibes around this team right now, I don't know. I don't really have much hope going into the series. Got to be real with you on that. But again, the most Mariners thing that could happen here is that they kick the living you-know-what out of the Rays tonight. Because why not? Baseball and the Mariners. And look, like we said on yesterday's show, and like I said on Wednesday night's show, that this team is really talented. It is talented to win any game that it competes in. It's just, they've been so wildly inconsistent, and that's being generous using that term. I don't know what to trust. And even if they swept the Rays this weekend, I don't know if I can trust that. We talked about that yesterday as well. So I'm just going to go along for the ride. I'll just say that. I'm just going to go along for the ride, see what happens, and we'll see, how we feel coming out on the other side of it.
Yeah. I think it feels pretty like the Mariners sweeping the Rays is a lot less likely than the Mariners getting swept by the Rays, which would be a 5-game losing streak. And I think at that point, we could pretty much safely say they're sellers, right? So this is an important series because if you get swept, you're done. You're 6 games back. Now you have to have a 6 games back of 500. Now you have to have a 10-game winning streak, which, this team showed you they're consistently good at anything. They're not even consistently good at losing. So I don't know. I don't know how you feel good about a 10-game winning streak if you get swept here. But yeah, it's an important series, and it doesn't get any easier. The pitching matchups not necessarily favorable to you, because after McClanahan today, you get Glasnow tomorrow. So,
Right. Yeah, the most favorable pitching matchup for you in this series is Sunday. You got Luis Castillo against Taj Bradley, who obviously very talented, one of the top pitching prospects in baseball. Hasn't had the greatest of years, not a terrible year either. And he has performed quite well against a couple of teams. And this Mariners offense. We don't need to go through all of that. So who knows? But you got Luis Castillo going that day. Who, I mean, he's given up 8 home runs in his last 3 starts, I believe.
yeah.
The long balls plagued Castillo over the last last few starts. So, what's really been the issue with Castillo lately? Like, what have you seen from him?
Same thing it always is with Castillo: control and command. It sounds like a cop-out answer, but his stuff isn't worse. Right, his velocity's not down. So what does that leave? He's leaving pitches in the middle of the plate, and that's a problem. Now, thankfully, in his last start, the home runs he gave up were both solo home runs. And, he really looked like he figured something out the second time through, much more on the corners. But Castillo's going to be aggressive. That's kind of part of his game. He's never going to have pinpoint command and control. That's never been a part of his game. So it's just about, limiting the mistakes and kind of hoping that this really deep Rays lineup misses the mistake that they get. And because the stuff is so good, they legitimately might. But yeah, this is a really good lineup. It's pretty right-handed heavy. Most of the damage comes from the right side. So that should, in theory, benefit Castillo. But what do we know about theories with this Mariners team? They don't exist, right? In theory, they have the pitching advantage. Nope, they don't. So who cares? So yeah, we'll see what happens. But obviously, Rosarena, Ramirez, you just kind of Isaac Paredes, like you just kind of look at this lineup, and a lot of the guys who can do big thunderous damage to you, they are right-handed. Josh Lowe is a guy who's having a good year, but he is, of course, left-handed. So yeah, I mean, Wander Franco. You remember a few years ago when the Mariners beat the Rays so bad they bullied them into bringing up Wander Franco? Those are good times. It's nothing to do with this series. I just like remembering
that was the Shed Long walk-off grand slam,
Father's Day weekend. Yep.
Yeah. They went 6-1 against the Rays that year.
Yeah,
it'd be cool if that was a repeat this year.
I mean, sure.
Hey, we gotta leave our listeners here with something positive, something to hold on to.
The positive is that at some point the Earth will stop spinning and it'll crash into the sun. So that's the positive. I mean, look, we'll see. It's not like the Mariners, like you talked about on Sunday, they have a pretty good pitching matchup. On Saturday, it's not bad, right? It's not like they
have George Kirby
now and they're throwing Tommy Milone, although Milone has had one start in this year and it was pretty good. But they got Kirby going, and we'll see what George you get. You never really know these days, which is part of the problem. But look, talent-wise, the Mariners aren't far behind the Rays. They're really not. If you just stack up, rosters, the difference is that the Rays are performing and the Mariners are not, and that's really all it comes down to. I guess if you're looking for, kind of a weak spot on this Rays team, it is the bullpen. The bullpen has been a bit of an issue. They have some guys, sure, but it's not very deep. So if you can get the starter, get them out of there. The Rays don't utilize their bullpen like most teams do. They're not afraid to go to their closer in the 6th or the 7th. They're very creative with how they maneuver their best guys. But overall, the numbers for the Rays bullpen, not very good. It's something that they will probably need to address at the trade deadline. So if you're looking for a way to kind of beat the Rays, you need to keep it close early. And then when the Rays bullpen inevitably gives you the opportunity to get that big hit and win the game, somebody needs to step up and do it. Okay. Or if the Rays are just going to walk you and let you win the game that way, just take the walk and say thank you. Teoscar Hernandez, Ty France, Cal Raleigh. Okay. It's not that hard of a concept. Don't chase ball 4 3 times in one at bat with the bases loaded and you only need a run to win. Okay. Don't be stupid.
Yeah.
Don't be
I'm in
soft.
pain. I'm in pain. I was recovering and now I'm in pain all over again.
Back at square one. At bats up here. Somebody step up. For the love of God, somebody step up. I would like for it to be Julio, but I will take anybody. So,
sure.
Colton Wong can't carry this offense forever, guys. Okay. Somebody else has to contribute. Although Wong's probably not in the lineup tonight. But hey, that means Dylan Moore and AJ Pollock are. Yeah.
If that sold you on listening or watching this game, you can listen to it on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. Did a really, really nice job of selling the series to you. Yeah. All right. We're going to move on. We're going to talk about trades. One particular trade idea in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting on MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets. That's up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting on everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit the first home run. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Again, you can catch the Mariners and the Rays if you so dare to listen on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. But be warned, bad offense ahead. Ugh. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to tonight. But we'll see. Hey, you never know. All right, trades. We haven't done a trade today in a little bit, so we're gonna get back to that. And Colby, I asked you who you wanted to do today, and you told me Alec Bohm. So Alec Bohm, infielder of the Philadelphia Phillies, former top prospect, now in his 4th season at the big league level, slashing .267, .312, .396. He has been worth 0.0 F4 in 67 games. 7 home runs, 47 RBI, 2 stolen bases. Doesn't strike out a lot. 17% strikeout rate. 5.8% walk rate, though, which is below average. 91 WRC plus. He was pretty good last year, but ended up finishing the year with a sub 100 WRC plus. So what do you think about Bohm? Why did you want to talk about him today? And why do you think he could be a fit for the Mariners?
Well, I wanted to talk about him today because you put me on the spot and said pick somebody, and then you told me to pick 3 different people, and then it was mostly your fault.
It was a whole debacle. There was some blame to be shared on both sides.
No, mostly just one side. But
I mean, you could have at least responded and said like, no, I don't want to do the 3 guy thing, instead of just leaving me on red. Not to design the background here.
I felt like leaving you on red was like the appropriate response to your moronic idea. Sure, naturally. So Alec Bohm, here's the deal with Bohm, right? Remember everybody kept on waiting for Ryan McMahon to break out, and it just didn't look like it was going to happen even in a hitter's ballpark, and now all of a sudden he's an all-star and everybody wants to trade for him again and all that. Yeah, that's probably not Alec Bohm, but it might be, and that's part of the appeal here. So essentially, the idea here with Alec Bohm is that he is still a young player. He's only 26 years old. He's toolsy. He is a guy who does have, some major league success. It's not amazing success, but he is at least an average major leaguer with upside. Here's what I like about him. He's very CTZ. in one aspect, in that he doesn't really strike out. 79th percentile in K percentage this year. But here's the big one. He is actually 30th percentile in chase rate, which isn't good, but he's 87th percentile in whiff rate. So he is chasing pitches that he can put in play, that he can make contact off of. So it's not so much that he's just, again, he's up there to hit. Like you said, he doesn't walk a ton. He is up there to swing the bat, but he doesn't swing and miss, which is kind of a huge bonus. And yeah, if you look at the numbers this year, the StatCast page this year, it's a lot of mediocre, a lot of, 51, 55, 49 percentile type of things. But when you look at what he did last year, year, 73rd percentile in average exit velo. We know the Mariners like that stat. 67th percentile in hard hit rate, 69th percentile in xWOBA, 98th percentile in x batting, 74th in x slug, 74th in K percentage, 72nd in whiff. He's not a terrible athlete. He's not a great athlete, but he's not terrible. Essentially, there is a lot of Ty France in this profile, but I would say with more tools. Now, Bohm hasn't been a good third baseman defensively, but again, how much do you trust Perry Hill? And Bohm could be moved to third or moved to first if need be. He's actually been better at third this year than first base, but that's not saying much. He's a bat that you're trying to acquire, and you're essentially trying to predict a breakout. And to me, it looked like the breakout was maybe coming after last year. When you look at how hard he hit the ball, and he's 280, 315, 398, nothing great, nothing amazing there, except for the batting average is well above average. How much of this do you think is real? Who do you think the real Alec Bohm is? And I think it's an interesting guy because he does make sense for the 2023 Mariners. He could carve out a role for the 2024, 2025 Mariners. He has, I believe, 2.5 years of club, maybe even 3.5. He might have been a Super 2. So yeah, I just think Alec Bohm is an interesting guy. He's not the perfect bat. He's not going to solve all your problems. There's a chance he's, just another guy, but there's a lot of Ty France to this profile. And I do think there's actually more power, in game power than he's shown so far. And he might be able to play third, which is something you kind of don't have in the long term. He's younger. He's cheaper than a Eugenio Suarez. And honestly, I think a Suarez for Bohm swap makes some sense. It's a little bit of arbitrage trading, but I do think that it makes a little bit of sense for both clubs. And hey, you know what? The last, hyped up infield prospect the Mariners acquired from the Phillies worked out pretty well here. So maybe they can do it again. But I do like the tools of Bohm, and I do like the age, and I do like the profile overall. So I think he's interesting. It's not really a buy move. It's not really, you might look at it as a sell move. I think it's just kind of a sideways deal, or like I said earlier, it's an arbitrage trade.
I mean, he's younger than Gino.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's a worse player than Gino, even this year, I would say. Even
mostly
with
because
Gino's,
of the defense.
Yeah. But there's obviously a higher ceiling there, long term, potentially.
Right.
He's under club control for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
He's a free agent in 2027. So
you get him for an extra year longer than you would get Gino. And he's cheaper, which again, for us, doesn't really matter. For Jerry Dipoto, who's working with a budget,
right,
that's $12-13 million. That's
the budget that he does not set.
Yes. So yeah, that's
a reminder for everyone.
So that's about $10 million you're going to save on the deal next year. Yeah. And like I said, Bohm is probably a good bet to hit for average. We'll see if the power plays. Obviously, T-Mobile Park, not great for power, and moving from Philly to Seattle is not an ideal transition there, but I do like the hit tool here.
You mentioned how little he whiffs. He's got the 25th lowest whiff rate in all baseball right now. 7.5% whiff rate. That's really good. And that would be great for a team that swings and misses a lot. So
yeah. I don't know. I feel like you're buying low a little bit here, because when you look at 2022 and 2021, the average exit velos were actually a lot higher than they are this year. And we know that is a stat that, like it or not, the Mariners do use in their evaluation. They like guys who hit the ball hard. So, yeah, I think Bohm is a guy who, again, it's a little bit it's a little bit of a, let's trade, because you look at Gino's stats right now and you look at Bohm's stats right now, they're pretty identical, minus the fact that Bohm is about 30, 40 points higher in batting average. You're trading some defense for it. So it's interesting. I think, the Gino and maybe there's other players involved in both sides to make it work and all that stuff. But Philly is a team that's kind of battling for a wild card spot right now. Seattle is, who knows? So yeah, I think it's at least interesting. I think it's a deal that's worth pondering if you're Jerry and Justin.
Well, you could very well, exit the season looking to upgrade at third base with the way that Gino's season is going so far. And, he doesn't cost a ton, but he is making what, $13 million a year and over the next 2 years.
Right. I'm not saying you're trading Gino to get rid of the salary. Like, that's not your prime motivation here. It's just a bonus. It's just a little extra. Yeah. And maybe it's not Gino that you're trading in this deal. You know who could really use first base help? The Phillies. You know what you have? You have Ty France. You're not doing France for Bohm straight up.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
But can you get Bohm and, whatever?
Mick Abel.
I mean, that'd be amazing, but sure, if you want to shoot pie in the sky, sure.
Andrew Painter, even though he's hurt.
Sure, yeah, that's totally sure. But I don't know. Can you get like Bohm and I don't know, Alvarado? Can you get Bohm and I don't know, could you get Bohm and like Nola? 2 months of Nola for 2.5 years of Ty France?
Why would they trade Nola?
I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just spitballing. Like, I don't know. I don't know if Philly's back into their roster very well. Like, you're not getting Marsh for France, probably.
What if you asked nicely?
Maybe.
What if you said pretty please?
Possibly.
All right. Yeah.
But
the France idea, you really want to trade Ty France.
I don't want to trade Ty France, but I think you have to be open to it.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
And by the way, like, again, I don't know if this is true. I don't like doing this, but like, if France is one of the guys who's a problem, then yeah, I think that's the perfect guy to trade out, because it sends shockwaves through your organization and it kind of shows how serious you are about buying in. Again, if France is that guy, I don't know if he is or not. We don't know who is and who isn't. We really don't. But if there are guys like that, and Ty France is one of them, then yeah, I'm absolutely willing to trade him this July.
The Gino for Bohm idea makes sense, at least from the Mariners side of things. I don't know about the Phillies, how they would feel about that.
And they upgrade their third base defense and they add more power to their lineup.
Yeah. I think it all also depends on, how they feel about their playoff odds, which have improved greatly as of late. They are above 500 now. They have, as we discovered yesterday on our Patreon show, the most valuable pitching staff in all of baseball, ahead of the Mariners.
Yeah.
Now. So things are on the up for the Phillies, aside from Trey Turner. Trey Turner is still really bad right now for them.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Tyson out here pitching Ty France for Trey Turner.
Right.
This guy.
Yeah. You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Again, you can catch the Mariners and the Rays on the Mariners Hometown Broadcast, Sirius XM, via the SXM app. Yeah. All right. So outside of Gino, outside of France, is there like a prospect package do you think the Phillies would entertain for Bohm, or any other ideas that you might have for him?
I mean, maybe you could package Topa and somebody else from the bullpen, but again, the Phillies pitching staff is fine. It's not really a big need. It doesn't mean they can't get better, but obviously it's not a huge need, and you're not trading. I mean, you're like, what is Emerson Hancock going to do for the Phillies? Nothing.
Right.
They have McCable, they have Andrew Painter, they have Suarez, they have Walker locked up, they have Wheeler locked up. Like, they don't need another back end guy. And if you're the Mariners, you're not trading like a high upside, like you're not trading Gabby Gonzalez or Cole Young, or you're not trading any of those guys for Alec Bohm because he's just not worth it right now. So I don't really see one. You never know. It's possible that there's a bulk deal out there, or maybe it's bulk and a reliever, like it's Topa and Deloach and Polkovich or whatever for Bohm. Then yeah, maybe. But I think it's more likely that if you're trading for Alec Bohm, it's probably a player, MLB player for MLB player swap as the main pieces.
Right. And Baum is an everyday player for them right now. Still, he's played 67 of 78 games, I think. So, yeah, and he's been playing a lot of first this year. 47 outings at first base, 28 at third.
They need help at first base.
Yeah, because Rhys Hoskins is out for the year.
He's out for the year, and he's a free agent. Yep.
All right. You told me before we started the show that you had some other sideways deals, potentially. Any that you want to mention on here real quick?
Well, I wrote an entire article about it. It was like 1,000 words on my Substack. So
all right. Promote
thanks
away.
For reading that, by the way. Appreciate it.
I missed it. I'm sorry.
Did you? It was only plastered all over Twitter, and I sent it to you.
Well, you didn't retweet my Julio article or
support Julio that article. Did you send it to me in the DM? I didn't think so. That's what I thought.
You sent me this article that you wrote?
I sent you the idea of it, like the players and all that. I wrote it out for you basically.
Oh.
Yeah, so how about I'll read them to you and you just tell me which one you want to talk about. And that's how I won the show.
Okay. All right.
Keep in mind that these are just the main ideas for the trade. Obviously, there's probably other players going back and forth, but these are the big guys, right? Sure. Paul Sewald for Willy Adames.
Right.
Paul Sewald for Harold Ramirez, who's going to be in town today.
Right.
Eugenio Suarez for Alec Bohm. Eugenio Suarez for DJ LeMahieu. And Eugenio Suarez for Jorge Polanco.
Right.
So
no to the DJ LeMahieu deal.
Yeah, I know you hate DJ.
I don't understand. I don't understand that one. Can you explain that one to me real quick? That's not the one that I'm spending. No. I'm not. I just want you to quickly explain that to me.
Right. LeMahieu is much more of a fit for T-Mobile Park. He's a very CTZ guy, puts the ball in play a ton. Sure. Can play multiple positions. He's pretty good at first, second, and third still. Doesn't strike out a ton. I just think he's a kind of a more of a typical leadoff hitter, which is what you need a little bit more of in this lineup. The issue is that he's due, I think it's $70 million, 50 something. It's a lot of money. It's more than you owe Gino. So my thought is can you get DJ LeMahieu and essentially buy
Jason
a prospect? I mean, not that one, but could you do that and buy a prospect or, sure, a major leaguer who's not really helping right now, the Yankees, because it's a pretty good system, maybe. So that's the thought process behind that. All right. But yeah.
Willy Adames.
Lame.
A guy that you wanted. All right, fine. Harold Ramirez.
No, we'll talk about it. It's fine. So the Milwaukee Brewers are in a dogfight for the NL Central because that division is a joke. Right. Not as much of a joke as the AL Central, yay geography. But they have a really bad bullpen. Just straight up, it's not good. They need a lot of help out there in the bullpen. What they have, at least in theory, I don't know in practice, what they do have is some middle infield depth. They have Bryce Turang. They have Willy Adames. They've just sent down Urias. So,
right.
Maybe this Willy Adames isn't as available as you might think, but they do have some depth. They have Brian Anderson who can also play around the infield. They do have guys who can kind of fill in the middle infield. They don't need Willy Adames, and Adames isn't having a good year to begin with. They need bullpen help. And when you look at the numbers, Sewald and Adames worth roughly the same, despite, Adames being an everyday player and Sewald pitching in 40% of the games this year. They're worth roughly the same value by F4. They each have a year and a half of club control left. Obviously, Adames is the more valuable player. He is a shortstop and a pretty good one. He has 30 home run power. We've seen it. not a great on base guy, but it is above average defense. It is well above average power, especially for up the middle. And he does have a year and a half left. Milwaukee, also a team that, cares about their payroll and they watch it even more closely than the Mariners do. And Adames is going to make a lot more money than Sewald this year and next year. So could that be a lateral move they're willing to make? Would they trust Urias or Terang to play shortstop for them going forward and trade Adames? I don't know if it would be for Sewald straight up. Again, maybe there's some kind of prospect swap, or maybe it's, Adames and blank for Sewald and Topa, so,
Right.
but I do think that when you kind of look at the club control, they line up value wise this year, at least they line up need for need. They line up. I would move Adames to second base and just, let him play there for the rest of the year. And obviously Milwaukee gets one or maybe two if you add like Topa, although Topa came from whatever, but Topa got also Topa got Festa, like whatever, they need bullpen help. Spire, like they need bullpen help. Send them bullpen help. Get your middle infielder and also get your solution for second base for 2024 at the same time. It's a bit of a risk because, like I said, Adames hasn't been good. He hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been good this year. Definitely a step back, and he's doesn't get on base a ton. He's really relying on power to drive his offensive profile, and he's a pretty good defender up the middle, and that's where his value comes from. So.
Right-handed bat who relies heavily on power. Sounds like a great fit for T-Mobile Park, Colby.
Yeah, it does. Find me a left-handed bat who plays shortstop, Ty.
JP Crawford.
That's what I'm talking about. That's why he's a second baseman. Nailed it. So
chills. We did it again.
Yeah, obviously, again, Adames. My favorite is Jorge Polanco. I just don't know how you get him. Is kind of the problem there, but I think Adames is a guy that if they don't acquire this summer, I think they're going to have serious talks about this winter, and I think Seattle will be interested because it is a shallow market, and the Mariners do need a second baseman or potentially a third baseman. So Adames can kind of fill both of those gaps, or you could put Adames at short and move JP over to second, which we've talked about in the past. But Adames isn't so much better than JP defensively that you have to make that swap. They're kind of interchangeable in that way.
These All-Star Game jerseys suck. These are really bad.
Well, thanks for watching, guys.
These are really bad. Sorry, I was looking at Twitter for a second.
They look kind of like soccer kits.
Yeah.
They look like something like the Sounders would wear, which I don't mind, but they're just.
Are they actually going to say American and National across, or are they?
I think so.
Like, that's not just like the stock photo. It's not going to be like, oh God.
I don't know. I don't hate them. I think they're fine.
Well, if that is the case, then we are going to get Shohei Ohtani in Northwest Green with a compass rose on his jersey. So he's going to.
By the way, side note, that's what the 2024 uniforms are going to look like.
No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you.
Make a lot of sense to reveal the new color scheme at the All-Star game.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
Just saying.
No, thank you. No.
I really don't think they're that bad, but okay.
Kevin Martinez, if you're watching, no, please. Just
also tell the guys they're soft. For me.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Tell them I'm pretty sure I could strike out Ty France with the bases loaded.
You know who wouldn't strike out with the bases loaded in a Mariners uniform? Shohei Ohtani.
Unless he was facing Jeff.
Who's going to wear the compass rose, the Northwest Green at the All-Star game at T-Mobile Park, hit like 2 home runs and be like, man, I played pretty well wearing this color. And boom, that's when it happens. So we'll see you in the winter for Ohtani watch.
Kind of needs a forced copium withdrawal.
Yeah. That's going to do it for our show. And that's going to do it for this interesting week. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Trident Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez. That's TANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well over at Locked On Mariners. That's one word, Locked On Mariners. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day and a beautiful baseball weekend, and we'll see you next time. Peace.